Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Brickyard Interview Series. This is our second interview series. So it's all brand new and fresh, and we're really excited to be here. I am very excited to be here for the first of the Brickyard Interview Series with the Toronto Poetry Slam, and really excited to have a chance to chat with Tanya Neumeyer. So let me tell you about Tanya. I've known Tanya for ages. Tanya is fabulous. Tanya, they, them, is a queer poet and educator committed to access and equity. As a Toronto-based poet, I gotta open this file a little bit because I can't see it all. Okay, that's better. As a Toronto-based poet who facilitates spoken word workshops, Tanya has more than 10 years of experience as a professional poet and continues to innovate. Tanya is a Toronto Poetry Slam organizer, a member of the League of Canadian Poets, and has worked with the Ontario Arts Council's Artists in Education program, with Louder Than a Bomb, Toronto, and the TDSB Creates. Piecing it together is Tanya's first book, which was published in 2009 by Thee Hellbox Press. Do you have it there? Can we show people?
Yeah, this is it.
Awesome. Beautiful. And Thee Hellbox is a printing press making innovative handmade books. The chapbook version of this work sold out in 2015. Thee Hellbox Press and Tanya created a second chapbook entitled What Breaks Me Open, and this is available at Thomas Fisher Rare Book Library and has been translated into Turkish. So, wow. Hi, Tanya. Thanks for being here.
Andrea Thompson, the one and only, the fabulous. Thank you so much for having me. It's a delight to get to share space with you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. You're so sweet. It's good to see you again. We haven't seen each other for a long time.
Too long.
So I was saying, you know, I'm thinking about these interview series as kind of a chance for people to get to know you as an artist. This one especially because it's the first one that's with the Toronto Poetry Slam artist, is a chance for people to get to know about the series. But I'm also thinking for people who are just emerging artists. You know, I would have loved this when I was starting out, to have like a chance to kind of get behind the scenes. So my first question I think I'm going to be asking everyone is, how did you get into spoken word? How did this happen?
Well, I'm just going to say at the top that not only am I so grateful to be here, but I feel like you already know all the backstories. So I feel like either it's going to be much more candid and there's going to be random details added, or I might get way off track. Well, let's see how it goes. But of course, I get asked this often when I'm visiting classrooms. Students like to know the origin story, how things started out. I went to my first Canadian Festival of Spoken Word in 2006 in Toronto, up at the Train Studio. Remember that place?
Yeah.
And I had been told by a friend or colleague in Kingston to go and check it out. And I had just graduated from, what did I study? International Development Studies and Geological Environmental Engineering. So this person knew that I had a creative side, and when I went to CFSW, I essentially was sort of mind blown by just seeing how poets really put their heart on the stage. And I'd really been asking a lot of questions about how to bring worlds together. You know, there's an interdisciplinary aspect to what I studied, and I felt that spoken word did such a brilliant job of centering lived experience and making complexity sort of simpler by that anchor in the body and in lived experience. And so yeah, as soon as I saw it, I couldn't turn away, and I'm really grateful to the folks who were around at that time. Truth is, Dwayne Morgan, Dave Silverberg, Crystal Mullen, Amanda Hebert, Sherry D. Wilson, Shane Koizan, like, who were all at that first festival and were just so welcoming. Actually, I also met my friend Lauren Corindia there. So that's a long time ago, 2006. What is that, 15 years ago?
Yeah. And you've been tearing up stages ever since and have been a really, I'd say, key part of the Toronto Poetry Slam and organizing across the country. So I'm really excited to have you here. Plus, you're awesome and you're my friend. So I'm thinking, you know, let's have a little taste. I would love to hear a piece. Would you like to share something with us?
I would love to. Of course, we are in a pandemic, and so I haven't been on a physical stage, only on virtual stages for so long. So probably going to stay seated. This one, this is the one I'm going to do. It's not necessarily very performative. So, but the text, it's a newer piece that hasn't been out there very much, and it's called "There Is a Universe." Let's hear it. There's a universe in my ankle and you can't see it. It's called arthritis. I am made of stardust and I have arthritis. No, I'm not too young. No, it's not osteo or rheumatoid. And no, I do not appreciate your unsolicited medical advice. That is what doctors do. And that was the first 10 years of this disease that had me resisting my diagnosis in a cloak of ableism. I am not broken. Don't fix me. I'm fabulous. Yes, I'm sure you're well intending and your cousin was cured with that treatment, but this is my body. I know it best. So don't ask me. Have you tried acupuncture? Have you tried acupuncture? Hey, have you tried acupuncture? Yes, and how about chelated gelatin tablets crushed by an osteopath recommended by the chiropractor after the massage therapy becomes too expensive? Before that, try the time in hospital, Chinese medicine, tincture burn, all the steroid injections, or better yet, just think positive thoughts to bring yourself to a higher vibration level. Now that's the secret. My arthritis changes like the weather, and I work hard not to walk funny so that I will not be scrutinized by your gaze. My arthritis is a cane, only sometimes at this point called passing privilege. My cane is a lightsaber I wield so that the force will be with me to be kind and patient while my wit outruns your questions, your 300,000 times. What happened? And the clever man who's going to ask me what I did to myself. Listen, we're all just fish swimming in a sea of ableism, and I am a seahorse. Which reminds me, why do you have to call that party lame? I am a great party, and you sound really boring when you say that. I love to dance, so sometimes arthritis is a tragedy. Sometimes it's the miracle of 19 classmates sitting on the ground to dance just like me. Or it's the sore foot at the end of the day in high heels, but I can't take those high heels off. It says, you can't be a workaholic because you have to sleep more. Feels like staying home. Feels like biking instead of walking. Looks like me in the wheelchair at IKEA, medical bills, lost work, standing on the subway in pain. It's months in crutches and on aircasts, facing endless stairs, asking, honey, please bring me everything I need. Arthritis is living in a world built for able-bodied people. And my arthritis is none of your business, but all of your questions have me writing this poem. So don't ask me what I've tried. Have you tried arthritis? Have you tried arthritis? Have you tried arthritis? Instead, ask me if I have any access means. Ask me if there's anything you can do. Ask me kindly how you can learn more. It hurts to walk home. So I have become a disability advocate. I am stardust, sitting here asking you to stand as you are able, hold your hand over your heart, and repeat after me. I will unlearn my ableism. I will unlearn my ableism. I will unlearn my ableism. There is a universe in my ankle, and you better believe me.
Oh my gosh, bravo, bravo. I will stand with my hand on my heart. I will unlearn my ableism. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. I love how you are, you know, your work has always been, I think, advocacy work. You know, you've always been, you've struck me anyways. I don't want to speak for you, but my experience of your work is has always been you are a voice not just for yourself, but for others in in community and different communities and shifting communities. And it was a perfect introduction when you were talking about how you got into spoken word, because this is it, you know, that embodiment and speaking of lived experience. Yeah. So thank you for sharing that with us. And thank you for the education on this. Very thought-provoking. Yeah. And yeah, and it's leading me actually into, it's another kind of perfect segue, because I wanted to talk about community and how you got involved with the Toronto Poetry Slam.
My cat would like to join us, so.
Oh yeah, let's say hello to Kitty. My Kitty's gonna be mad because George is in the other room there. Did Kitty come in?
He's here. Let's see what he does. Sorry for the interruption.
Oh,
yeah, I think you were asking how I actually love this, you know, because I don't know what other, hi, want to say hi to your auntie?
Hi, buddy. What's his name?
Thatcher.
Thatcher. Yeah, I think I met Thatcher.
Probably.
I think I
did. For a long time now.
Oh yeah, I met Thatcher.
There he goes. Okay.
Thatcher rules the house, if I remember correctly. Okay, see, Kitty. Yeah, so community, Toronto Poetry Slam. How did that happen? What is Toronto Poetry Slam? Maybe we can talk about all of the above. You can just go where you like.
Well, I think I got involved around, people keep asking me this question, so I wish we had better records, but it's a collective of folks who've organized a poetry slam, which hopefully you know about. If you don't know about, you're on the internet, you might want to pause this and Google it. But in short, it's people doing poems like you heard on a stage for 3 minutes at a time with just their voices, no props, no musical accompaniment, borrowing from oral traditions that run deep, Black and Indigenous oral traditions, co-opted by our friend and colleague, Mark Smith. And it's a phenomena that I think caught on. I mean, you could speak more to it, the origins in Canada and Vancouver from the stories I've heard from you, and then things starting in Toronto in the 90s with slam, poetry, whatever that is. And so those events were once a month when I got involved. And one of my colleagues, Raul, was for a long time advocating that we do it twice a month. And eventually we did have the poetry slam twice a month. Now we're in the pandemic and we're sitting together in the room where we had the first poetry slam online in March 14th, 2020, if I remember correctly. So I don't know if that answers sort of the sub question of what is it. How I got involved was the community was so welcoming. Obviously, I had no training, and I still have no formal training in the arts. But I think I've had the best education that I could have by getting to spend time with you and those others I mentioned, like in community where it's, you know, person after person after person on the stage. And I think it's humbling at the slam where anyone can get up at any time on the stage. And so whether someone is, you know, as I was, completely untrained and bringing raw talent and energy, or you know, now I've been on many stages many times in front of hundreds of people at a time. And so, you know, obviously the experience that you bring to the stage grows as time and circumstance and support permits. So yeah, how did I get involved? I think Amanda Hebert or Ariana Potswali or Dave or Valentino, Raul, who else? Somebody asked me to join them and I was like, me? I'm a kid here. I just got here. What do you want from? Oh, Mike Smith was there too. I think the first meeting was in Amanda Hebert's apartment that I went to. And so that would have been around 2009. And it was, I mean, imagine all those personalities in the room.
That's a party. That's a party.
Exactly. It was a party. I was like, and I came from like student politics, like I did student council president stuff. So I was like, oh, wait, this is how you organize things? There was no, I was on the school board, there was no Robert's Rules of Order, which was on one hand absolutely refreshing. And on the other hand, I was like, I don't think I'm going to say a word, because not only am I new, but I don't, it's, how do I
here?
how do I get a word in? I mean, I also just wanted to listen, but we did better over time at thinking about, okay, well, how do we work together? What does it mean when you have a bunch of artists in a room together? We worked on learning about consensus, and I think our interpersonal practices have grown as an organization, where as we've had to handle, you know, hard things that come up in a small community. It's bound to come up in a small community, right? When interpersonal dynamics, fighting on a team, all sorts of things that we've learned from, whether it meant putting together a contract or having debriefing sessions, having, you know, hard conversations. So yeah, I've been around for a lot of it.
Yeah. Wow, it's just having so many memories and thinking about, you know, I love hearing about your experiences with it, because you're really focusing on what I think is like, it's kind of like the behind the scenes, but it's also the center of the wheel, is the sense of community. That really, what is the slam? It's community. It's people expressing what's in their hearts and their minds, and doing that in cooperation and in support of other people. A lot of people, you know, experience the slam as something that's, you know, it's an event. And really, when we look at poetry, it is an event. It's dynamic. It's as far as poetry goes, it's kind of bombastic. It's, you know, there's a lot of energy. The audience is involved. There's hooping and hollering. It's an event. And I think it's really interesting to me when I, you know, to talk to you as an artist, because one of the things that I've noticed is seems to be central in your practice is the making of beautifully crafted books. And I was looking here actually before our interview for a copy of 10, because I show that to students all the time, which is like a tiny little book, and it's so thoughtful and beautiful, and it's your initials. And you know, and I think of you when I think of this, like, you know, handmade books. And so I just wanted to open that up to hear you speak about that, and if you wanted to talk about like the difference between these big events and this small kind of thoughtful practice of making a physical object.
Yeah. I mean, I love the question, and I'm gonna walk backwards into it, because I got really excited when you said that slam is about community, and I just feel that for myself, like, that's why I've stuck around. It's, you know, and of course the particular community, like some of the people who I've mentioned who were on the board or the collective of Toronto Poetry Slam have now moved on to different careers and different cities, right? And so the particular landscape of what the community looks like grows, right? Changes, shifts. Some people stay connected forever. Some people sort of fade away and then check back in. There's all sorts of things that happen there. But the phenomena of the experience of community is the thing for me that has kept me around, because when somebody gets on stage, when I get on stages and share my arthritis poem, I always feel like, oh God, I don't like, the whole point of the poem is I don't want to hear more from people about this, you know, but I'm putting it out in the world. And so have I had an arthritis drug rep come and talk to me? Yes. And I'm like, well, I'm glad I could do this education work for you, but like, thank you, and we're done. Like, they tried to diagnose me, right? So weird things happen. I'm sort of getting away from the point, but the beautiful thing, I'm trying to speak about my experience rather than other people's experiences, and I've coached, right? So I've also seen people grow. But the way that I feel vulnerable after sharing the arthritis poem is a little different. I'm more grounded, I'm more rooted. I'm able to set those boundaries and say, no, thank you, arthritis drug rep. And to find what feels good in the balance of sharing something that is meant to be of support to other people, but obviously does also involve some vulnerability, my own lived experience being put out there. And so I think part of my practice has been to, find where that line is that feels good about how much I can share for the point of sort of bringing people into a bigger perspective. So the phenomena of connecting with others who have similar lived experiences, and then being able to be vulnerable, survive it, grow through it, become stronger because of it. When I see that not only in myself and in the relationships I've made with others, but from many people who come onto the stage, share things and grow up in a certain way. I mean, think about it, Andrea, when you met me, how old was I? Like a baby, right?
Yeah.
So
you're still a baby.
Now I'm at the end of my 30s, actually. So so it feels different. I'm turning 40 in January, Capricorn.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You're a Capricorn. Are you a Capricorn too?
No, Pisces.
Oh, of course you're a Pisces. Yeah. Oh, thank God. Thank God for the Pisces.
Oh, you're adorable. Okay. All right. I'm flustered now. Okay.
Can we just love each other? But that's a thing though, right? Like meeting amazing people who I wouldn't have otherwise. Some of the best people in the world that I know I've met at the Poetry Slam. So what else do I want to be doing with my life? If I can show up at the collective and, do score, or eventually we started a bunch of us hosting on stage. That's turns out to be quite hard work. Obviously a privilege to be up there, but help out where I can and keep that thing, the phenomena of the experience of community going through poetry. That's a beautiful thing.
It's one of the thing that I'm thinking about is this kind of dichotomy though, or maybe I should just say balance, because you and I have done a lot of work together. We were up in Sudbury working with youth at risk and staying in where were we, in a motel or something? I don't know.
There was a police officer in the room.
What? Well, we were working with police services because they had a program for youth at risk, and I know you do, like, that kind of work is very much in your heart as it is in mine, but because you go on a road trip, you're hanging out with somebody, you get to know them, and you always since for me have been somebody who really embodies mindfulness. Like, it's not just a word, it's a beingness, as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to you. And so this is why I'm fascinated about the bookmaking, and that kind of, is that like a meditative thing for you? Is that a way to kind of like inhale, exhale? You know what I mean? You know where I'm going with this? Yeah.
The reason I may have dodged the subject is because it is a big one. So this book, my first book, it's
you don't have to if it's painful.
Just spoiler alert: Hugh Walter Barclay died, my mentor who made this book.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, he didn't die of COVID. He was aging gracefully. He's taught me things about like how to go,
Wow.
Because that time comes for all of us. And I had so many good years with him. I met him when he was 70 and he died at 86. He was my oldest friend. He made it onto the Toronto Poetry Slam stage. I spent a couple of summer days with Kim Fauner, another poet, at Hugh's workshop, putting one of her poems together. And so this book, every single page is made by hand. Do you remember this one, Courage to Love? This is
courage.
Yeah, that's right. That's it. And open, people still, I had a roommate who was asking me about this line. You don't need to be anything but yourself here. But the point being, he did these soft block prints, and every single letter, when this word says open, I use the word so many times, he had to buy more text. But the O he said in, and the P and the E and the N. So we used to work on these things together. For my next book, because that was so labor intensive, we only did just the cover is done on the letterpress. The rest is like a printed book. But the piece that you have, the tiny little 1-page book that folds up, amazing little technology, is all set by hand as well. So Hugh taught me that, and oh, I miss him. He was a great mentor. The funny thing is, the one story that I told to one of his daughters was when my other mentor, Susan Babbitt, who also died in September, and he died in October, just before I was going to go see him and remember Susan. We went on a road trip once. The three of us, we drove out to Walpole Island, where he had an artist friend, and we stayed with Teresa Alteman. And Susan couldn't drive based on some health stuff at the time. And so Hugh and I took turns driving his tiny little blue car that he drove all the way across the country. And at one point when I was driving, he went in the back and he said, "I'm going to just do a very deep meditation." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, he's meditating." I keep driving. Next thing I know, he's in the back and he's just snoring. But Susan had told me about Vipassana meditation, and you're giving away all my secrets, because I don't normally talk a lot about meditation because it's something I do for myself, so that I can be a better human in the world, of course, but so that I can sort of survive the world to be a better human, just with every in-breath and out-breath. But Susan's the one who told me about Vipassana, and believe it or not, Hugh in his 70s went to sit a course. So for me, I think I got to witness and partake in his practice of mindfulness, which was very much about making these books. And it's been a gift to every time we've got to make something together. And I miss him. But my own practice is more, and the way that it comes into my writing, my own practice is more intangible, because all I have is the breath and the sensation in my body. And what's interesting is that I sit silent meditation in quiet. So if I'm sitting like this, it would be very boring for a recording, but for an hour, in breath and out breath, I'm not writing, and I'm not actively rehearsing a poem, trying to remember the next word. How does it go? Some poems come, but I sort of let them come and go, right? So it's interesting, because I feel like so much of our world, like when I pick up Instagram, then I feel like I want to keep picking it up, or when I check my email, then I want to keep, like, there's so much habitual like movement, or the ways that and especially working in a digital environment more and more now, which is a great privilege. But to notice how my mind goes, and then to get to like let that drop, rather than I'm already accidentally clicking on the next thing, which is an algorithm which is designed to get me to click on the next thing and the next thing. If you're watching this on YouTube,
check out the next video.
yeah. Are you going to click on the next thing? But it's been helpful, because rather than when a phrase of words, Buddy Wakefield has a line about this, like, if you have a moment of brilliance and then the next day you wake up missing it like front teeth, So there, as a writer, it's very compelling to want to always be producing, thinking about poetry, and keeping my mind in that habit. But to take a break from it, which I do in my practice, and then to return to it and trust the process, right? To trust that, okay, I didn't write that down. That, oh, there was something about being a seahorse. What was that line? I really liked it. Oh no, I forgot the metaphor altogether. It was something for the arthritis poem or something. Was there an ocean imagery? What was it? But to fully release that, and to trust that if it's good enough, it'll come back to me. I think that is part of my practice. So in terms of, how I embody like awareness and how it affects my practice. And I think the only other thing is that everything I offer, I've, like all of us, but I've thought about it, and I mean, I want to come from here. Like, I want it to be a gesture of love, like of care, of generosity, right? Coming from a full cup rather than an empty cup. So
yeah, that's great.
All about
but that's, it's like you're spying on my notes, because it was something I was going to ask you about next. I love your website is gorgeous, and you've got this tagline across the just across the screen, which is tender-hearted poetry for change making. And I thought, well, that's it exactly. That's a perfect summing up. And when I was looking at the different services that you offered, I read that you do custom poetry, which I think is great. And I was wondering if you had anything that you wanted to share about that, about, poetry as an act of generosity, gift making, any stories from your experiences doing that you wanted to let us know about.
Yeah, I mean, where was I? Oh, I was at the Toronto International Festival of Authors this year, 2021, and I wish I remembered the poet's name. I'll have to put it in the YouTube comments. But essentially, they listened to the other poets and then offered a poem back. And so, to me, that's a beautiful act of generosity. That kind of active listening in a world where there's so much noise and it's so easy to be nervous or focus on ourselves. Mm-hmm. So it's funny. I feel like a lot of poets have that skill set, and yet a lot of poets in the room at TIFA were like, oh my goodness, I've never seen that. But sometimes, I mean, I can write a poem beforehand, but sometimes I go to events and I write a poem live on the spot. I'm telling you, Andrea, it's a terrible idea because it takes a lot of energy out of me, and it's but as far as poetry standards go, it's probably terrible poetry, but it's a great act of love. Mm. It's listening attentively, especially at conferences, because I'm such a damn nerd. I won the Nerd Slam once upon a time. I love how ideas get built through dialogue and conversation. And so for me, when conferences are happening in action and you'd have this conversation with someone between this event, the other, as an active listener, I've done this both online now and in person in the olden days at physical conferences. My job as an artist there is to sort of listen for the through line, like where people are having common points of connection to sort of spark a dialogue, and reflect that back and to show sort of how it builds or interconnects. So yeah, I've done some of that stuff. And other organizations like Engineers Without Borders they sent in like 200 to 300 words from each chapter across the country. And then I was writing right up till the moment I went into the convention center. I was like, does this even make sense? Because it's so many words, right? It's actually an editing task at that point. But then there's also a structure piece, like what, and how do you make it sound like a poem and sound like something people want to listen to? So yeah, that's probably the most custom thing I do.
That's cool. Well, do you want to share another piece with us?
Yeah, let's I was thinking that this last one, I think I first wrote it on Twitter, which sounds silly, but I work very incrementally and then revisit things. And I was exploring at that point in time what a simile can do. So listen for the word like. It's called, at this point, the working title is Like a Poet. So poets write poems, raise kids, make change, bake bread, make people cry, and try to get paid. And try again. A poet knows there's an elephant in the room and they're talking about it. A poet likes to get to know other poets, but not when they're busy in the woods writing poems. A poet sometimes writes when they should be sleeping. Looks like they're muttering to themselves on the street, reciting a poem, memorizing poetry. A poet writes often using few words, can picture it, but doesn't know exactly what they're saying. Yet it sounds wondrous. A poet is a metaphor machine, a joint maker, joining things that weren't joined, that aren't things, but are separate like things until you put them together and make a soup and confuse people about what you were cooking up in the first place. Poets are a story you don't want to end, each one unique and somehow familiar. Lovers of syntax, making meaning, poets show you the roots of a cliche and then burn it to ash. Smash a mason jar under the full moon just to prove that the light still shines on the night sky. A poem is the sound of gently falling rain that asks us what we're doing here. It's silence, holding space at marriage, at death, at birth. A poet is the poem. And the poem trains in free association. Inside a poem is writing, inside writing is creativity, inside creativity is color, inside color is meaning, inside meaning is life, and inside life is making stories like breath. Poetry is a spontaneous combustion improbability machine limited only by language and your imagination, making stories out of human experience. Sometimes poets are more like aliens, and aliens are more like astronauts, and astronauts help us get a better view of why we're here. All of this helps us remember.
Beautiful. Bravo. Bravo. It's so good to hear your work again. It's been a while. Yeah. I love it. I love it.
Great to be here with you.
Okay, well, poets are like a story that you don't want to end, and this is a chat that I don't want to end, but well, I think we'll have our final. Good to see you, and thank you for coming, and thank you for sharing and being so open-hearted. Tanya Neumeyer, open-hearted poet. Yeah.
Thanks for holding space for me to be able to talk about the details of some of this stuff. As an organizer, I feel like I'm often more compelled to think about the art form and how it's doing and what it needs and what we can do together. But that feels a little bit like another conversation. This is sort of one between friends. So thanks for drawing all that out of me. Only the poets have seen me meditating in hotel rooms at various poetry festivals, you know. That's great. I'm glad to be here with you today. And yeah, thank you for the space.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody, for joining us with this conversation with Tanya Neumeyer. We're going to put a link below, pointing below to what is not there now, but will be tanyaneumeyer.com. Is it .com? Yeah, .com. And this is the first of our Brickyard Interview Series with artists from the Toronto Poetry Slam. So there will be more to come. So come back and do what the algorithm tells you and watch the next video right after. No. Thanks so much, Tanya. Thanks everybody for joining us.
Great to be here with you. Thanks everyone. Take care. Bye-bye. Bye.